Welcome back, you guys, to our Thursday session of Feelin' Lucky. I am super excited to have you're probably my oldest relationship friend in real estate, and we'll get to that in a minute. But I wanted to go ahead and welcome Jason Moon on today. We're going to get a little bit involved in what Jason's done over the last couple of years to shift his business and some of those challenges that he's faced, not only starting in real estate, but also getting married, having kids, having these different things and still growing the business. So Jason, before we dive in, I'm going to give everybody a little bit of an idea who you really are. So Jason got into the business back in 2015. I guess it was started 2015, wasn't it? Thereabouts?
Right around there.
Yeah. So in his first year, he actually sold 16 homes in his first 8 months. Major kudos for that. Rookie of the year in his office in 2015. Top solo agent within Keller Williams in 2019, 2020, and get this, 2021. I'm thinking there's going to be a 2022 on there here soon. Also, he was the individual agent of the year for his office 2 times and #1 team in the office in 2021 when he launched his team. Last year, his small team sold just under 40, actually, it was just over 45 million in volume, which is absolutely fantastic. Because when we get into explaining what your team and how that was working, that's phenomenal. So Jason, welcome. How are you?
Great. Yeah. Thanks for having me, Kayla. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's happy to be here. Happy to contribute and, share what I've learned. And, hopefully somebody comes away with something great today from, what I've experienced.
Heck yeah. So before we dive into your challenges, the things that you've come through and come out of on top, I referenced earlier, you're my oldest friend in real estate. So huge flashback. Jason and I actually met when I was 18. I think you were probably 16. And Jason's in California, by the way. I am in North Carolina. And both of our families who didn't know each other just so happened to take the same cruise to Alaska back in 2006. So we met because we were the kids on the boat. There weren't many of us, and hung out for an entire week and then stayed friends on, you guessed it, AOL Instant Messenger for any Gen Zs out there.
Oh my God.
So we remained friends and then found each other on MySpace when that became a thing, and then found each other on Facebook. And funny enough, I think I had made a post about real estate and we were both with Keller Williams at the time. And you were like, oh my gosh, I'm with Keller Williams too. So ever since then, it's phenomenal to know somebody that you kind of knew when you were a kid of sorts. Also being really successful.
That's crazy. Thanks for bringing that story up. I kind of had forgotten how long ago that was. I mean, literally, we were just kids. We were some of the only kids. It was you, your brother, me, my brother. I think there was a few other kids. We met on that cruise. We hung out, doing all the kids stuff all week. That was a good time. Yeah, and then you mentioned you were in Keller Williams, and we met up at a conference. That was the first time I had seen you in probably 12 years.
Literally.
Like yeah, that's crazy.
Which I will reference. I'm in almost none of the family photos from that entire trip because I did hang out with mostly the kids on the boat. And my camera got lost. My SD card got lost somewhere in the mix, and I have no photos of Alaska. So I have to go back.
You're dating yourself big time. So am I.
I know. I had my little
cards.
Right. No cloud back then. So let's dive in. So tell us a little bit about that first year that you got into real estate. What was some of your biggest challenges? And I know that obviously you were rookie of the year. What do you feel like that came from? Why or how did you actually accomplish that?
Yeah, great question. When I think about that first year, a lot comes to mind. I was in a period of my life where we did not have any money. My wife and I were newly married. Our families, both on each side, were going through some hard times, and so it was not this hey, I'm just living at home rent free, and I want to sell a few houses. I was in a situation where I felt like I was working a 9-to-5 job, but I just did not have any room for growth. I started doing the math. I think I was 24 at the time. I'm like, man, I hope by the time I'm 30 that I'm able to make 6 figures. And I'm like, well, who are the people in this company that make 6 figures? Oh my gosh, they're the district manager. How old's the district manager? Well, the youngest one I've seen is at least 45. right?
Mhm.
So I started just kind of playing out the math and then realizing like I had put myself in an environment where I couldn't grow.
Yeah.
And my mom's an entrepreneur, my dad's an entrepreneur, and coming from an entrepreneurial family, I really wanted to go out there and do something similar. So, that first year looked like, my wife working at Ruth's Chris restaurant, with some cash tips till 3 in the morning while I
Yeah.
was out there lead generating every single day. Um,
Mhm.
and we gave ourselves a window of time. We gave ourselves a full year. Said if we can't make it happen in this full year, then you know what? It's okay. At least we're still in our little apartment. We're still broke, and we'll do something different, right?
Yeah.
So, in some ways, my back was against the wall, and in other ways, it really wasn't. Um, I will say that the key contributing factor to me being successful in that first year was lead generating every single day. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that. I literally went door to door in neighborhoods, door knocked every single day, Monday through Friday, and I would work open houses on weekends. And
Mhm.
I remember it got to a point where I wasn't bringing anything home, so I picked up a part-time job just because I couldn't not bring home a check. And then I started getting leads from that place too. So I was lead generating all the time, and that's really what led to that success. I didn't just wake up and one day just started selling a lot of homes. It just
Yeah.
it came from one really elderly lady with a barking dog, and I could barely even hear what she was saying as she opened the door, in Pleasant Hill, California. She's like, we were going to hire the people here on the postcard that we always get in the mail, but since you came to my door today, maybe we can talk to you. And I'm
And you're
not
like,
kidding you. I was 24 years old and she was probably 75, right? So I'm like, that's phenomenal. Let's do this. So set an appointment, and that was the first listing I ever signed. And that's how it started.
Can I
And
can I pause you to make a few points here for everybody that's watching? So if you guys haven't picked this up, I feel like there's a few key lessons that can be brought from this. One, he burned the boats. Have you ever heard the phrase burn the boats? Go take the island and burn the boats. The reason why you do that is that there's no turning around. You made the decision, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to give it my full focus for 1 year. And if it really doesn't work out, at least I know I did everything I possibly could to make it work, which is funny because I did the exact same thing. I said, I have 1 year to make $50,000. That's all I wanted. If I can make 50K, I'll stay with it. And from there, it grew, but you also did the consistency. So nothing was going to stop you. All right, we need gas money. Great. I'll pick up a part-time job, but I'm still going to sell real estate while I'm there. I'm going to talk to everybody that's there. I'm going to build my database and my pipeline. And I think that's absolutely phenomenal. You didn't stop till you got a yes.
I didn't. And it took a while to get a yes. And I think that's the other thing too, that I think a lot of new agents forget is that you're going to experience a ton of rejection before you finally get that yes. Um,
Mhm.
but that yes is coming, right? And that was kind of my mantra every single day. I would
Yes.
look at myself in the mirror as I practiced my scripts, and I'm reminded myself every single day that not only did I have to practice for objection handlers, but I had to be ready for someone to tell me yes. What was my expression going to look like on my face? What was I going to say? Was I going to look like a deer in the headlights, or was I going to be like ready for that opportunity as if I had done it my whole life? So
Yeah.
I would do that every day in practice. And so when the yes came, I was ready. I was like, yeah, cool. All right. So here's how this will work.
Mhm.
Can I come over Wednesday at 10 a.m.? We'll sit down and we'll go over the
Yeah.
paperwork. Yeah. Like I was ready. So
After so many no's sometimes too, when you're expecting another no and someone does say yes, you're like, oh, that was easy. I've been arguing with people for like 5 weeks to just say yes. And you said, yeah, I will be there in an hour. I will be there in an hour. Like, don't change your mind.
exactly. But yeah, I mean, really, I think the mistake a lot of newer agents make is that they see this as an option or not necessarily an opportunity. And there's a big
Mm,
difference. Like this isn't an option. Like if you want, to provide yourself an opportunity to go out and create a business, then you really do have to burn the boats, and you really do have to lead generate every single day. When you give yourself that security of, well, it's an option, I could do it, I might
mhm.
be, well, now you have, you don't, you're standing on both like you're 1 foot in and you're 1 foot out, right? You have like 1 foot in the water and 1 foot out. And really the scariest part about it is you just have to put both feet in and really go all in, and commit. It starts here.
It's the definition of the word try, right? Try means you've already figured it's going to fail. You're just going to do the action, just half cocked because it's going to fail anyway. I'm just going to put 1 foot in it.
Yeah. And I actually, when I got rejected, I was actually excited because that just meant I was that much closer to someone saying yes.
I love that. I love that. It's so true. The no's pay us as well, guys. When you're making calls or door knocking, every no you get is just one step closer to a yes. So welcome the no's just as much as you welcome the yeses.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. So you took your business when you came in. It sounds like you were mostly cold call. Who were you calling? That's a question that I get a lot. Who were you reaching out to? And were you specifying where you were door knocking?
So yeah, just to clarify. So I was born and raised here in the area, but I was nervous to go and talk to my sphere, which I think is something that most people are still, even seasoned veteran agents are still afraid to go and call their, friend today. Right. So I kind of had this thing in me, and it could have been ego, and maybe it was, and that's okay. I wanted to go out there and prove to everybody that I could do this. Right. Yep. And I'm like, I was born and raised in this area. I'm going to go door knock the neighborhoods that I grew up in. So that's what I did. So I basically printed out a map, and I would bring it with me, and I would highlight which streets, I door knocked. And then I would wait a few months before going back, because the reality is I probably didn't talk to everybody on that street. Mm-hmm. I probably talked to maybe 20% of the people on that street that day, if that.
Yeah.
And then I would go back and I would circle through every few months those same areas. And what it came down to is eventually I had talked to 70% of the neighborhood. And at that point I had gone on a ton of appointments. I knew what my conversion ratio was. I did not do a lot of cold calling. It was mainly door knocking and open houses. And then very quickly, once my sphere saw that I actually could sell a home, I wasn't just this 24-year-old kid who would park his really beat up Toyota Corolla around the corner of my showing.
No one can see it.
Because my car was so beat up. I was so embarrassed of my car. And I was a realtor in the Bay Area driving that thing. Right. So anyway.
Mine would grind when I turned it on. I'd wait till everybody left before I turned my car over, because it was sounded like it was going to explode in the engine.
I actually had the cranking windows. I had to crank down my window, and because the door handle on the inside had broke, I had to reach out and over and open up the door from the outside. That's the world I lived in until I sold about my third or fourth house and I got myself a new car, which, by the way, don't do that. Don't go and buy a new car right away. That is not advice. I was very picky. It was a very, very affordable payment. It was not a Maserati. It was not a Mercedes. It was just this tiny little Ford, but it was definitely a step up from where I was. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't feel like my car is going to fall off on my way to show a house today. So anyway, I bring it back to my main sources were door knocking, working open houses for other agents in my office, and then working with my sphere. I think the thing is, as a new realtor too, you have to find like a brokerage or a company that's going to provide you the resources and opportunities to do that. So it was easy for me because our office that I joined had over 300 realtors here in just the office, right? So I was able to go and introduce myself as this young agent and ask, hey, I know you're busy. Maybe you want to go on a vacation this Saturday. Can I hold your open house for you? And I would do that, and I would introduce myself to everybody. And that gave me a ton of opportunity, and I got a lot of great leads and business from working those open houses.
I love that. And I want to kind of put a bow on that, because you made some really good points. One, yes, do not run out and buy a brand new car because you got 3 deals in and you're feeling really flush with cash. Because when you first start, your business is going to be like this, especially as we're coming into this reset in the market. Things are not going to be consistent. It's you're newer, especially. So the next point I want to make, you had a very, very expensive, very fancy, technologically advanced tool for door knocking, which is a printed map and highlighter. Guys, you don't need the most fancy. You're going to get calls all the time. I'm sure you did, even when you first started. Like, hey, we have this new system and it'll get you all these deals. You just need 1 to 2 closings to pay for it, right? You don't need to get fancy. Tenacity and just showing up and doing the work will get you farther than anything. And honestly, if I shut everything in my company down today, I could go back to spending $300 a month on a phone dialer with a couple of expired and FSBOs leads, holding open houses and door knocking. And that would be it. And I would be perfectly fine. And my business would still thrive. So you don't need fancy.
Yeah. So you bring up a really good point that I think everybody needs to hear, is that in the beginning, and even you could even scale this kind of business. It just depends on what you want it to look like, but free lead generation sources is what I focused on at the time, because I didn't have money.
Yeah.
No, I meant free, F-R-E-E.
I was going to say 3. I'm thinking of the legs of a stool, right? You need to have.
Yeah. I did have 3 sources, but I focused on the free ones. I was able to borrow open house signs. I was able to go out and knock with some black and white paper. I didn't need to drop any flyers. I just had a great script. I introduced myself. I had, a business cards in my pocket, right? And that's what I did. Not saying that you can't go out there and start a business based off of, swiping a credit card and using Zillow leads, but I would just caution those who were in the same position that I was in, right? Yeah. Leverage the opportunities that are around you that are very low cost, and until you have a profitable business where you can then decide to pivot and
still don't go crazy. Yeah, that's fantastic. And here's another thing too, which you made a good point. Your firm has other agents in it. Call them, introduce yourself. Don't hide behind email or text message. Literally call them and say, hey, I'm so-and-so. I'm with the same firm. I've sold X number of houses. I have an entire strategy for open houses. I would love to hold one of your properties open. If given the opportunity, I'll make sure I provide you X, Y, Z. And what it might be is feedback, making sure I'm putting social media posts out, right? All a listing agent wants to know is you're going to take care of their client. You're going to make them look good, not bad. I'm sure some of you might have had that. They're out there, right? Oh, I don't want anybody to hold it open. They left the door unlocked, or there were footprints, right? Pick the right person. But other agents want you to hold their houses open. I love letting other agents hold my houses open. It's phenomenal because I've hit this other level where I don't do them anymore. Yeah. So I love that. So I'm going to pivot just a little bit. Now, as you now are getting more consistent with business, which it's amazing how tenacious we can be when we have no money and still figure it out. As you started making this pivot and becoming more successful, usually that leads to a little bit of burnout, some challenges. What were some of the challenges that you started to face in your business, but also perhaps personally that you're running into because of your business?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to talk about the wins, right? I don't feel like we hear much of the challenge, but there's a lot of challenges. One of the biggest challenges I faced, and that most realtors will face, is that all of a sudden they are doing it all. Everything from putting the listing up on the MLS, to printing out the flyers, to creating the flyer on Canva, to downloading and uploading spreadsheets. I mean, everything you could imagine, servicing the clients from A to Z. Like, I was doing everything. I did it all. And what I realized, I was kind of plateauing. I went from like 19 homes sold to 21 homes sold to 24 homes sold. And I was just like, okay, I'm kind of at this. And like for our area, by the way, higher price point requires a ton of extra work. I can't just send an email.
I'm still here.
I was kind of plateauing, right? And I realized, okay, if I really want to start growing by 10, 20, 30 sold homes a year, I'm going to need some help. So that was a challenge I faced in my business. And the first hire I made was an admin. And I had to go through a few different administrative assistants before finding the right one.
Can I pause you on that? Would you mind digging into that a little bit? Because that's something that I've heard before. People are either scared to get an admin because they're like, well, what if I don't get the right one? Or they hire the wrong one and then they don't know how to make that transition. What was that like?
So unless you get super, super lucky, you're probably not going to find the perfect admin on your first hire. You're not. That's just the truth. And I think we need to think about, like, just the reality is, like, you're asking someone to get into business with you, and no one's going to do the things that you do like you do them, right? However, what I realized is that it wasn't just on the admin. I actually was not the leader that I needed to be to actually have an assistant, because I needed to be organized and thoughtful enough to spend the time to train them on the
Yes.
things that I was doing. So my first hire, I had expectations that were through the roof, but my training and
Just
my
like
actual, yeah, exactly. So I would spend maybe
throw them into the fire and just like see what happens.
yeah, I was sort of dumping everything on them instead of delegating, right?
Yeah.
Like I was just like, do this. And then when they would do it, I'd be like, are you serious? That is not what I was talking about. This is what I wanted. And so I think what we don't realize is that you actually go from like being, you know, somebody who's just on your own and doing it your own way with your own habits, whether good or bad, every single day, to, okay, actually, I have to show up a little bit more responsibly today. I have to actually show up and be the person who can train this assistant. So part of it is your own personal growth. But the other truth and reality is that it might take a few hires. And I feel like I'm finally at a point where like I've hired someone who I feel like is a good match for our business, from a culture standpoint, from a work ethic standpoint, all the things that really matter to me and are important, you know, she is doing, right. But it took a while to get there. So business wise, right, that's what I began to do. And then I grew my team. I started having people in the office who were helping show houses. And now I have people on my team who are not just showing homes, but helping write offers for our buyer clients. So I hit a lid as far as like, I couldn't do it all the time. And then I realized I could, but I'd be working 90 hours a week.
Yes.
And as I got married and had kids, that was not going to be an acceptable way of life for how I wanted to live my life. Right.
By design.
Yeah. I wanted to create a business where I had some flexibility to have some weekends off, or to be present at dinner time and breakfast time and not have to feel like I'm always being interrupted. Now, I'll be the first to admit, you're a business owner, your business is going to interrupt you no matter what, right? However, I would say over the last year and a half, my work-life balance has improved dramatically from years past. So even though Jason Moon was the one winning all these awards, at the end of the day, I was pretty tired and burnt out.
Yeah. Well, and I want to kind of unpack that because you made some really great points. Going back to hiring an assistant, leverage. So not only did you get your time back, but you also got the ability to start growing again, bringing other members on to help them grow. So I want everybody to understand this. It was a messy process, right? It wasn't.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
They didn't come in just geniuses that they could read your mind and go, okay, Jason, I know exactly what you want. Here's your entire portfolio. Here's all of your systems and processes. And I think one thing that a lot of people hesitate on with hiring as well is, well, I don't have a system. I don't have this documented. I don't even know what they're going to do, right? Like if I hire somebody, like what are they even going to do? Because we get so used to doing it all ourselves, even though we know we're burnt out. Honestly, my assistant can do most things better than I can. My vision and where I'm really good at is connecting with people, coaching, training, listing, having those sales conversations. But when it comes to documentation or putting together a system, like that's just not my thing. I'm a visionary. It's not what I do. So if you train this person, and I'll give you probably know this at this point, but a fun fact that I learned from Rory Vaden, who he wrote 2 books, actually. I think he's coming out with a 3rd, but it's Take the Stairs and Procrastinate on Purpose. Great books. But I was sitting with Rory and we were talking. He goes, most people don't understand this. What you should do is any activity you want one of your employees to do, you should train them for the amount of time that activity takes. You should train them on that activity 30 times the amount of minutes that it takes to do that activity. And I'm sitting there going, that's insane. You're telling me instead of training them on a 5-minute activity, 5 minutes, I should train them 30 times that amount of time. So by the way, if anybody is doing quick math, which I'm doing it on my calculator, that's 150 minutes. 150 minutes for a 5-minute task.
That's 2.5 hours. That's a long.
Exactly. Now, but let's think about this. Most of us as business owners, what do? We go, no, I'll just keep doing that 5-minute task till the end of time, it's fine. Let's say we do that for 250 days out of the year. That's 1,250 minutes. So let's think about that. Because we didn't train them at a high level 30 times the 5 minutes, which is 150 minutes, now we're left going ahead and spending an additional 1,100 minutes on that same task.
Absolutely.
Take the time to train. They don't come pre-trained, and it's not always you and it's not always them, right? So that's another point I'm going to make. Your first couple of assistants and executives didn't work out. That's okay. Part of it was you, part of it was them. One might be you, I failed my first assistant horribly. Like, I just thought she showed up pre-trained and we were like, great, let's do it. And I pulled exactly this challenge. I was like, well, I could just keep doing it. And she's sitting there like, what do you want me to do? Why am I even here? So I'm really glad you brought that up, because leverage is one of the biggest things that can catapult your business forward and give you a lifestyle that you desire while still keeping revenue flowing. But it's also scary because you're taking on something new. And a lot of us we think we're the best at what we do at everything, and we're just not.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say know when you hit your ceiling and your lid, right? And be aware of that. Talk to other agents in the office. Hey, when did you hire your first admin? What did that feel like? What was your workload? It's not going to be the same for everybody. Everybody's capacity is different. So for me, kind of around that 25 homes sold was my limit. For other agents I've talked to, they can sell 50 homes a year by themselves before feeling like they need to hire. Right?
I have no idea. My first coach actually was like, you're not ready yet. You have to hit this number of houses. I was like, well, I did 29 and I don't know. I feel like I should probably have, no, you need to hit at least 40. And I'm going, I don't think that's accurate. So also listen to your own self. And if you're feeling that stress, you need to get help.
Totally.
Yeah, I love that. So in this growth, so now you have started your team, you've started that segment. What is it that has been a challenge as you're making that transition from independent agent to agent with an admin to now adding on team members such as buyer's agents and potentially soon a listing agent? What does that look like for you? What are the challenges that you've had with that?
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, the size of my team has not brought me a ton of challenges, and I've kind of done that on purpose. There's just 5 of us, right? Mm-hmm. I could imagine if I grow to 10, 15, 20, more challenges will show up. But if you're going from solo agent to solo agent with admin to solo agent with admin and now an agent who's actually interacting with your client, I think one of the biggest challenges is maintaining face with your clients and making sure that they're having a team experience, not necessarily just that agent on your team and having an experience with that agent on your team. That's something that I've been challenged with, that I finally over the last 3 to 6 months have just now started to really focus on. So providing a team experience somewhere where the agents who are on your team can just plug in and play. So I think one of the let's be honest, the challenges with having a team, it's not having the best training videos. It's not having the coolest business cards. It's not even necessarily, getting the 5-star review. The challenge is leads. You have to have enough leads. You have to have enough leads and you have to be able to have enough time to coach and train the agents on your team. So if you're not training them and coaching them on how to go and get leads, and then if you don't have enough leads for them, depending on your model, those are going to be your biggest challenges always. Right. Yeah. So that's kind of what I come back to every single week. It's like, okay, we need to go back to some more training. Okay. We need to have a coaching conversation. Okay. You know what? We're low on our lead flow. What's going on? Is everybody hitting their benchmarks regarding lead gen? I think we need some accountability over the next few weeks. Right. So the way I combat that with is how I've always combated that. We do this thing called Thirsty Thursdays, where on Thursdays we are thirsty for business. And we do 3 hours worth of lead generating, where we call, email, text those on our database on social media and try and find more business. And at the end of the day, just remind people that we're here to help them. So when our lead flow is down and we do more Thirsty Thursdays, right? So it's stuff like that. Those are the biggest challenges. And obviously culture, right? Not everybody thinks like you. Not everybody acts like you. having high expectations of how people should act and behave, right? So you have to find the right behavioral match for your team. And so
Mhm.
I was fortunate enough that I was and still am a part-time productivity coach of our office.
Oh,
So
nice.
so the agent that I hired onto my team as a buyer's agent, I actually was her coach.
Oh,
So
that's great.
yeah, I was able to just kind of go through the roster and look through it and be like, who are the agents in our office that should be selling more homes, but they aren't? Because
There's something missing.
those are
Yeah.
the agents that I can train and coach. And she was one of them. And then last year, she went from 3 homes sold the year before to last year, she sold 16 houses on our team.
Woohoo! Heck yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, hopefully that answered your question. But, those are the challenges, right?
Yeah. I love that. I love that. So, in conclusion, if you were talking to newer agents or agents that perhaps have hit that, I'm not going to even say that, just that threshold that you were talking about, where things are just, you're not breaking through, what would your biggest recommendation, based upon some mishaps that you've had or successes you've had in the last couple of years, what would your recommendation be for them?
Yeah. The way I always combat challenges in my business is by lead generating.
Love that.
Really, if you're a solo agent and you're just starting out, you need to go out and prospect and go out and find leads. No matter, every single day, your job is to ask yourself, how do I get my next appointment?
Yes.
That's the only focus, and that's what I'm focused on now. And so as you grow, if you start getting to the point where you're like, oh my gosh, I can't handle all these appointments, well, that's your sign that you need some leverage, right?
Yep. I love that. I love that. Everything can be solved by leads. Prospect. If you don't have an appointment that afternoon, you should be prospecting. If you don't have any, you should be prospecting. And you shouldn't be planning anything else other than prospecting until you have an appointment. So I love that.
Yep.
This has been phenomenal. Any last words for anybody that's watching?
Yeah, I would just say have a prospecting based business, check your budget every single month, and lead with a abundance mindset, not a scarcity mindset. I think that was one of the biggest things that I struggled with as a new agent. So I combated that with daily affirmations. I would journal them and I would speak them out in the mirror, because our outer world is determined by our inner world, right? Our actions are a depiction of our thoughts. We first think and then we believe and then we act. So really get your mindset right every single day. And you will find that if you're able to get your mindset right, that you will, and have that abundance mindset, that anything is possible, you will find that you will go out there more motivated to take over the world and, build your real estate business.
I love this. Thank you for leaving us with that. That was actually phenomenal. If you guys just tuned in the last 3 minutes, that was just a lot. So you guys can follow Jason. I highly recommend it at _Jason Moon. Jason, thanks for being on today. And
fun.
yeah, listen, people follow you. I love it. Thank you.
Thanks.